Eugene Wee knelt amidst the storm, his body trembling violently under the overwhelming surge of energy coursing through him. His face was pale, his breath shallow, and his eyes unfocused, as if he teetered on the brink of collapse. The danger of demonic deviation loomed over him, its shadow growing darker with each passing moment. Lee Cheol-soo stood nearby, his expression a blend of panic and determination. He quickly assessed the situation, his sharp gaze tracing the intricate pathways of chi within Eugene Wee's faltering body. The energy radiating from his senior brother was immense, too immense for anyone but Eugene Wee to endure. Anyone else, Cheol-soo knew, would have already succumbed, reduced to an empty shell, their mind and spirit consumed by the energy's ferocity. Cheol-soo clenched his fists, the urgency of the situation igniting a fire in his heart. He had no time to hesitate. Eugene Wee was not just his senior but the beacon of hope for their sex revival, a man destined to rebuild their shattered foundation and restore its former glory. To lose him now would be unthinkable. With grim resolve, Cheol-soo knelt beside Eugene Wee, his own chi surging forth like a torrent as he began to channel it into his brother's failing body. The flow of energy between them was both precise and powerful, guided by Cheol-soo's mastery of techniques that surpassed his years. He had ascended to the level of an absolute master, a feat rare and extraordinary, even in the annals of their sex history. Now, he wielded that mastery with unyielding focus, stabilizing Eugene Wee's chaotic chi and reinforcing his faltering spirit. Eugene Wee was pinned to the cold, unyielding ground, his chest heaving as the weight of the demon bore down on him. The creature's clawed hand tightened around Eugene Wee's throat, cutting off his breath, as if to crush not just his body but his spirit. Eugene Wee's eyes darted frantically, his instincts screaming for survival. His hands, trembling with desperation, clawed at the dirt and rocks beneath him. His fingers brushed against something solid, a stone. Without hesitation, he seized it, his grip firm despite the numbness creeping into his limbs. Mustering what strength he had left, Eugene Wee swung the makeshift weapon with every ounce of force he could summon. The stone struck the demon's head with a resounding crack. The impact was enough. The demon's grip loosened, its momentary disorientation granting Eugene Wee the precious opportunity he needed. He stumbled forward, his breaths ragged and shallow, each step heavier than the last. A deep sense of regret clawed at his mind, intertwining with the suffocating fear that threatened to consume him. The demon's presence loomed in his thoughts, a grim reminder of the price he paid for the power he had wielded since birth. That dark nature, always lurking in the shadows of his being, now seemed poised to claim him in his moment of weakness. The futility of it all pressed down on him like an unbearable weight, a silent whisper of surrender. But just as despair began to take hold, a faint sensation stirred within him, piercing through the fog of his thoughts. A voice, familiar and resolute, resonated in his mind, urging him to stand firm. Before he could grasp its source, a sudden surge of energy coursed through his body. It was vibrant and steady, igniting a fire within him that had nearly been extinguished. The unexpected vitality jolted Eugene Wee, and his instincts sharpened. He recognized the distinct quality of the energy, its signature unmistakable. The realization struck him, this was not his own power. It was his junior, Lee Cheol-soo, lending him strength from afar. The profound connection between them became a lifeline, binding their resolve as one. In the midst of his internal struggle, a voice pierced the storm of his thoughts. Lee Cheol-soo's words reached him through the chaos, distant but clear. The voice was steady, filled with the urgency and resolve of his junior brother, who, despite the overwhelming energy pressing from outside, was taking a tremendous risk to help him. Eugene Wee's heart clenched in response. He knew Cheol-soo was straining, his own energy being poured out for Eugene Wee's sake, but the junior was undeterred. He was pushing forward, offering him a chance, a lifeline. Eugene Wee's breath hitched as he realized the gravity of the situation. The path was fraught with peril, not only from the demon but also from the strain on Cheol-soo, who was risking his own safety to aid him. Despite the crushing pressure within and without, Eugene Wee steeled himself. He could not afford to falter now. The urge to give up gnawed at him, but the thought of his junior's sacrifice ignited a new fire within him. His resolve hardened. He would not allow himself to fall prey to the demon or to his own inner darkness. With a fierce determination, Jinwei surged forward, his steps powered by the surge of energy he felt coursing through him from Cheol-soo. The pain was unbearable, but he refused to relent. The demon loomed before him, taunting him with its mocking presence, but he had no intention of backing down. Jinwei stood amidst the silence, his breath coming in heavy, ragged gasps. The strain of his thoughts was as palpable as the tension in the air. Jinwei's focus sharpened, and he could feel the slight tremor in his body as his senses heightened. He knew that controlling the essence would be the key. If, however, he found himself drained of energy and the demon's eyes began to open, it would be a sign. He would need to replenish his internal energy immediately to keep the creature at bay. With a deep breath, Cheol-soo pinpointed the first acupoint, his senior's philtrum. He pressed gently, a pulse of energy radiating from his fingertips as Jinwei's body responded. One by one, the meridians began to open, starting from the philtrum point, where the first thread of energy surged into Jinwei's body. Cheol-soo's hands moved steadily, tracing the path of Jinwei's meridians with practiced skill. The next acupoint, the center of the trunk, was unlocked, followed by the intersection point, each pressure point releasing a wave of energy that coursed through Jinwei's body like fire. Jinwei felt the tension within him release with each point opened, his internal energy flowing more freely, though the challenge was far from over. The final acupoint, perineal, was unlocked, but Cheol-soo knew that this alone would not be enough. With determination in his eyes, Cheol-soo's voice rang out in the stillness, urging his senior to push forward. The Ren meridian, the central line of energy that would complete the cycle, was yet to be breached. If they stopped now, all the progress made would be in vain. Within the depths of Jinwei's consciousness, a fierce battle raged. His mind, already strained by the process of channeling the elixir, was now under attack by the ever-present threat of his inner demon. The demon, a shadow of darkness and malice, clawed at his mental defenses, its presence growing more oppressive with each passing moment. Jinwei could feel its claws digging deeper, threatening to overwhelm him. He fought back with all his will, but the demon's force was relentless, pushing against him like an unstoppable tide. Every moment felt like an eternity as Jinwei struggled to maintain control, his focus faltering under the weight of the inner turmoil. Just as the demon's energy surged, threatening to break through his defenses and strike, Jinwei's focus snapped back. With a surge of determination, he managed to absorb the essence of the elixir. The power coursed through his veins, flooding his body with renewed strength. The surge of energy was like a cleansing wave, quelling the rising darkness within him. In that moment, the demon's resistance crumbled. The inner darkness, which had once seemed. Cheol-soo watching closely for any sign of change. The rapid, uneven breaths that had once filled the air now began to steady, growing more controlled with each passing moment. It was a sign that Jinwei had succeeded. He had absorbed the essence of the elixir. Without wasting a moment, Cheol-soo's voice took on an urgent, yet encouraging tone. He knew they were on the verge of a crucial breakthrough. The path ahead was nearly complete. Jinwei had to direct his focus now, sending the yin energy to the philtrum point to unlock the next step. The opening of the Ren and Du meridians, the final gateway to fully harnessing his power, was within reach. Jinwei absorbed the elixir, and a moment of reflection settled over him. He could not help but marvel at the unwavering loyalty and selflessness that had defined their relationship from the very start. His junior had always been there, putting his needs above all else, offering everything important to Jinwei without hesitation. It was a quiet sacrifice, one that Jinwei had never taken for granted. He felt a swell of gratitude rise within him, tempered by a twinge of sadness. His junior had trained tirelessly, day after day, driven by a desire to grow stronger. Yet, despite this effort, there was a constant yielding, a willingness to give up their own desires for Jinwei's sake. Jinwei appreciated it deeply, the care and devotion that had become second nature to his junior. It brought a rare warmth to his heart. But there was also an undeniable sense of regret. He wished his junior would take more care of themselves, that they wouldn't always put him first. The weight of their sacrifices, their constant selflessness, had not gone unnoticed. Jinwei felt an overwhelming sense of indebtedness, a vow to never forget this unspoken grace. As Jinwei's complexion paled, a clear sign that his body was undergoing intense transformation. Cheol-soo couldn't help but mutter to himself. His eyes narrowed as he observed the intricate flow of energy within Jinwee's form. The senior brother was performing the 3-in true technique, a powerful method that required an extraordinary level of control over the body's tendons and meridians, something far beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person. Cheol-soo's expression shifted to one of annoyance mixed with begrudging admiration. He knew just how demanding this process was. It wasn't easy. It was a true test of endurance and skill. Yet, despite the hardships, Cheol-soo could see the progress Jinwee was making. It was a remarkable feat, though one that left Cheol-soo with a sense of frustration over the effort it demanded. His gaze drifted around the cave, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. His mind wandered to his own past, his experiences with elixirs, and the frustrations that came with them. He had once thought he had consumed a legendary elixir in a previous life, something that would elevate him beyond ordinary limitations. Instead, it had turned out to be nothing more than midasungsu, an elixir that had left him with unforeseen consequences. The thought made him chuckle bitterly. No wonder, he mused, he had avoided women like the plague in that life. The energy from the elixir, overwhelming and unbalanced, had only exacerbated his internal struggles. Cheol-soo sighed, his eyes flicking back to Jinwee. The situation had become more complicated than he had anticipated. Cheol-soo surveyed the cave's surroundings. His eyes were drawn to a peculiar patch of moss growing behind a rock. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than a common weed, but something about it caught his attention. He stepped closer, intrigued, and muttered under his breath as he inspected the moss more closely. To his surprise, a distinct energy emanated from the plant, a subtle yet undeniable presence of yang energy. It was a rarity in this environment filled with overwhelming yin. His eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't just any ordinary moss. It was something far more potent. The energy he sensed was unmistakably hangyangti, a rare and powerful herb, though a tier below the legendary midasungsu. The moss pulsed with vitality, its growth lush and vibrant, indicating a potency that could rival even some of the most revered herbs. Cheol-soo's excitement grew as the implications began to dawn on him. He had thought that Mugayak, the enigmatic figure who had left behind the midasungsu, would have left nothing else of value. But this discovery shattered that assumption. Mugayak hadn't simply abandoned him with nothing. He had left behind an alternative, an herb that could sustain and even enhance his power. Realizing the opportunity before him, Cheol-soo could hardly contain his joy. He quickly reached for the moss, grasping it eagerly in his hands, and without hesitation, consumed it. As the herb's energy surged through him, he felt a rush of exhilaration. This was it. This was the breakthrough he had been waiting for. He had just secured an advantage, a key to monopolizing his power after reincarnation. In that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The future was his to shape. Seated in the lotus position, Cheol-soo prepared himself for the next phase of his journey. With a deep, steadying breath, he closed his eyes, his mind clear and sharp. The moment had come to harness the power of hangyangti, to channel its vitality throughout his body. Cheol-soo knew the traditional method. Most would gather the essence of an elixir in their lower dantian, carefully transforming it into internal energy. But he had no intention of following the conventional path. His plan was different. Instead of concentrating the energy in a single point, he would allow the hangyangti's vitality to spread throughout his entire body, filling every part of him with its essence. He could feel the pulse of the herb within him as he prepared to absorb its power. This would be no simple task. As the energy began to flow, he could sense the warmth spreading from his core, invigorating his muscles, tendons, and bones. With each passing moment, the vitality within him grew stronger, nourishing his body and fortifying his health. With resolve, his expression firmed, his entire being focused on the task ahead. The energy of the herb surged through him, and he embraced it fully, his body humming with power. He could feel the changes taking place, his body growing more robust, his strength multiplying. His body no longer felt fragile or prone to sickness. It was a welcome change, a step forward in his quest for strength. Opening his eyes slowly, Cheol-soo took in his surroundings, but his gaze quickly darted around the cave. His senior, Jinwee, was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that Jinwee had already completed his meditation and had gone to wash up. Cheol-soo paused for a moment, then glanced down at himself, feeling the grime of his journey settling uncomfortably on his skin. With a slight frown, he decided it was time for him to freshen up as well. This place, where Mugayak had once lived, likely contained at least one bathhouse, a small luxury in the midst of the harsh conditions they had endured. Jinwei stood waist-deep in the cool, clear water of the pond, letting the refreshing sensation wash over him. The gentle ripples caressed his skin as he took a deep breath, feeling a moment of peace settle within him. The warmth from the elixir had invigorated him, and now, the bath served as a simple but welcome relief. Suddenly, a voice called out from outside the pond's edge. Jinwei stiffened, startled. It was Cheol-soo, his voice carrying over the distance with his usual curiosity. He immediately felt a surge of panic. There was no way Cheol-soo could see him like this. The idea of being discovered in such an unguarded state filled him with unease. Quickly, he gathered himself and responded, trying to maintain composure despite the sudden rush of embarrassment. He couldn't let his junior discover the truth. Not yet. Not when the secret of his true identity was still so delicate. The fact that someone he had always referred to as his senior brother was, in fact, a woman, was a revelation he could not yet reveal. It was a personal matter, one that held far more weight than Cheol-soo could understand.